Duke Nukem is one of the most recognized names in gaming. The character and all the games he has starred in are the epitome of all things crass and brash. An amalgamation of iconic action heroes, perpetually stuck in the 90s, the legacy of Duke spans across nearly 2 decades of gaming, albeit with one significant decade-long absence. Starting out as a side-scroller for PCs in the early 90s, the character of Duke Nukem truly came alive with Duke Nukem 3D, developed by 3D Realms in 1996.
One of the things I love about Duke Nukem is he is almost absurdly one-dimensional. The guy is, in a world where all of our heroes have become so emo, and they're like complex and they've got problems. It's like Duke doesn't have any problems, man. He's just there to kick ass and have a good time and to look good doing it.
It really did demonstrate, I think, to people that you can make a strongly character-based game that fulfills a lot of what I think of even in the sense of role-playing, where you're defined, you're given a true role, a character, a mood, an interaction style that you really is portrayed to you as what you want to be within the game.
When you think about where Duke came from, ultimately he is a cliche of all of the action heroes from his era, his first era, and he's almost like an amalgamation of all of those heroes and then exaggerated. Like you take all those heroes, put them all together, and then exaggerate that even further, and that's how you get Duke. I think Duke would probably call all those other heroes pussies.
While the design of Duke Nukem 3D was one of the first to bring a noticeable sense of character to the first-person shooter genre, the story of that same game was one of the first to bring a heavy dose of morally objectionable content to gamers. The story of Duke 3D was that aliens had invaded Earth to kidnap all of our planet's attractive women, and it was up to Duke and all his vulgar misogyny to rescue them, while committing as much violence unto the invaders as possible. Brash one-liners, M for mature dialogue, a sprinkling of nudity, and heaping spoonfuls of graphic violence all played their part in the Duke Nukem formula.
Yeah, I think we found the content entertaining. We're certainly not scandalized. I think that it was interesting that, it's certainly at that time in the business, it was pretty forward-thinking to actually lead with sort of content that was on the edge.
It was after like Evil Dead and Bruce Campbell.
Yeah, it was sort of some inspiration
reminiscent
from
of that, right?
Yeah,
some of the lines.
But certainly, definitely
more humorous
in the game space, it was titillating, shall we say?
But even in 1996, game designers were wise enough to realize that a game chock full of crass content wouldn't be worth much if it wasn't grounded in some strong gameplay fundamentals. While the game featured a solid foundation of first-person shooter gameplay, Duke Nukem 3D also showcased a number of gameplay mechanics that were revolutionary for the time, such as jetpacks, pipe bombs, shrink rays, and more. These and other innovations made the single-player campaign memorable, while bringing some fresh and creative tactics to the game's multiplayer modes.
Oh, Duke Nukem, when it came out, we were playing that in the office pretty much non-stop. And
we just started BioWare in a brand new office.
Multiplayer battles, like pretty much every evening at 5 p.m. we would go for an hour or two, and it was awesome. The pipe bombs and kind of running through the areas, and there was some kind of like transformation thing where you could transmute someone into.
The Porculator was Hexen.
That was Hexen? Okay.
Yeah,
there's the midget. You could shrink them down. You could run around and step on them. That was fun. That was a great game.
Yeah, it was a we played it all the time. Actually, it's one of those things. Like
I liked it so much that I went back and bought the collector's edition. So I told George Broussard that I have the mouse pad. Still the mouse pad I have at my home. And it's quite worn now, but it's one of my favorite memorabilia from years gone by for video games.
In 1997, 3D Realms announced that they were developing the highly anticipated sequel, Duke Nukem Forever. This announcement was made with the best of intentions, but ultimately would go on to be one of the longest-running gags in video game development history. Duke Nukem Forever was plagued with many long-standing problems, delaying its release for many, many years, until ultimately the inevitable happened. 3D Realms laid off the entire development staff for Duke Nukem Forever in 2009. The project looked to be finally done for when Randy Pitchford of Gearbox Software announced in September of 2010 that his studio would be taking up the banner of finishing Duke Nukem Forever.
A lot of people don't know this, but my first job in the game industry was when I worked at 3D Realms, and my first commercial product that I was part of as a professional game maker was Duke Nukem 3D. And so I feel a lot like I owe the man my career, So when I left 3D Realms in '97, I was kind of like everybody else, watching the development of Duke Forever from the outside. And of course, when the bad news came in May of 2009 that 3D Realms was shutting its doors, that the Duke was dead, can't let the Duke die, man. And I happened to be in a spot where I knew we could help. I knew we could help, so I had to do whatever I had to do.
But for all the troubles facing the series' development, Duke Nukem, with all of his goofy one-liners and single-dimensional hyperbole, has become an indelible video game icon. Despite modern games going in drastically different directions from the seeds that were planted by Duke 3D, he remains at the heart of what so many first-person shooters are all about: the big man with a big gun.
It's very interesting how Duke has become iconic. He actually is perhaps, in terms of like male action heroes in the video games, he might be the most iconic, which is really astonishing because it's not because of all the great games that have come out. There haven't been any Duke Nukem games for so many years. Yet there he is. He's become very important to gamer culture. He's certainly bigger than me. He's like our Chuck Norris. You know what I mean? Like he's the king, man. He's the king.